Hey BookTube, time for a March wrap-up.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
So, contemporary books I read in March. Some were contemporary romance and a couple were just contemporary fiction, all YA, but let me tell you about some of them. A couple were ARCs, so I'll tell you about those first. The first was called Seed. This is by Lisa Heathfield. I read it as an ebook from NetGalley. I didn't actually rate this book because I felt like it was a disturbing book to read. It wasn't badly written or anything, but it just disturbed me. It is the story of Pearl, who I think is about 15, and she is part of a cult in the UK, and the story is essentially her coming to realize that maybe the cult that she has grown up in and been raised to think of as a utopia, maybe it isn't quite the utopia that she thought it was. She has no knowledge of the outside world, but when a new family comes into the cult, there's a teenage boy that she gets to know, and he has been in the world, and he kind of opens her eyes. I think it's an important book, but it was not a great book in terms of entertainment for me, and that's why I read, is for entertainment. So, yeah, I didn't rate it, and I would probably recommend it, but not in terms of a book. It's a book that will make you think. It's not a book that will make you smile. So, yeah, didn't rate that one. And the other was called Forever for a Year by B.T. Gottfried. Again, this was an ebook that I read from NetGalley, and it follows the story of Carolina and Trevor, and it's written kind of in diary form, so you're getting his diary and her diary, and these are two freshmen in high school who are like 15, I think, and it follows the story of their relationship. They kind of fall in love, and then through the course of their freshman year, we, follow them as their relationship grows and progresses and it runs its course. And it's really well done, really cute. And I have to say, it took me a little while to get into it because these are two 14, 15-year-olds, and they talk like that, and everything to them is forever, and they have no concept of forever. And so this is what happens through the course of the book. You watch them get a grasp on reality, essentially, in a relationship. So it was exceptionally well done. I really liked it, and I gave it 4 stars. An adult contemporary romance that I read was called Simply Irresistible. This is by Jill Shalvis, and it is book 1 in the Lucky Harbor series. This was pretty well done, I have to say. I listened to it as an audiobook, and it was narrated by Celeste Sula. I didn't like her narration at all, and it really did turn me off to the book at first. I tried to start reading this a while ago, and I just put it down because I didn't like her. She gave some of the characters good voices, but others, it just kind of, fell flat for me. So I picked it up as an ebook, and I really liked it. This is chick lit. So, you've got your standard plot line where this girl is from an abusive relationship, and she meets the guy of her dreams, and she's sworn off men, and he changes her mind. So that's the basic plot line. It takes place in a harbor town in the Pacific Northwest, and it centers around a bed and breakfast left to the main character by her mother, who has died, and this contractor she meets who is going to come in and help her rehab the whole place and set it up. It's got some cute characters in it. It's got very witty dialogue, which I think Jill Shalvis is probably good at. That's what she's good at, is really witty, snappy dialogue, and it was a lot of fun, I have to say. So I'm glad I read it. I don't know that I'll continue on with the series, but I might. I don't know. Like I say, it's chick lit, so it's entertainment. It's like watching a Hallmark movie or a movie on Lifetime. So I gave that one 3 stars. Where You Are by Tamara Weber. This is book 2 in the Between the Lines series. This series is about a group of young adults who are actors, and they make a movie in book 1. So book 1 follows all of their relationships and what happens during the making of the movie. So this particular book follows 4 of the characters. One is the main character from book 1. She's Emma, and she has decided to go to college and leave her film career on hold. And Graham, who is a working actor in New York, and then Brooke, who is a pretty successful actress who comes from Texas and not a great home environment. And Reed, who is the, guy whose poster is on the wall of every teeny bopper in America. So you have these four, and this plot is essentially Brooke trying to break up another relationship, and it's kind of involved and intricate, and it's kind of silly, actually. It's immature people making decisions and having a lot of influence and money and being able to make things happen and make people believe certain things. And overall, the plot wasn't all that believable. So I didn't really care for this one that much. I give it 3 stars, but I will say this. If you've picked up this series, then don't quit with this book, because I've since read books 3 and 4, and they're really good. These books were narrated on audio by Kate Rudd and Todd Haberkorn, and I have fallen in love with both of those narrators, because this book, had I been reading it as a book, as an ebook, or as a physical print book, I probably would have put it aside and then ditched the rest of the series. I'm so glad I didn't, because these 2 narrators really redeemed the book for me. Confess by Colleen Hoover. This was narrated on audio by Elizabeth Louise and Sebastian York. Okay, I can't stand those 2 narrators. I'm so tired of them. They've narrated almost all of the Abby Glines books, and they're like the standard new adult narrators, and I can't take it anymore. They make every character sound exactly the same. And then, that's a shame, because these characters that are written have so much more potential. So I have to say that diminished the book on some level for me. But this is Colleen Hoover. So it was going to be great. If you know anything about new adult, if you read new adult at all, Colleen Hoover is fabulous. And this book was no exception. This is about a guy who is a painter and a girl who cuts hair but hates it. She's in an interesting life situation, and she runs into him because he needs help, kind of running a gallery show. He has a studio, and outside his studio is a little mail slot. And he invites people to write something down that they want to confess. And they drop it anonymously into the mail slot, and he then takes those confessions and makes paintings out of them. Well, Colleen Hoover has done kind of this idea with, maybe someday, she took a music idea, and the whole plot was all about that. And she kind of collaborated with Griffin Peterson, and he made like a CD album that had to do with the book, and so it was a nice collaboration. Same thing here, but with an artist, and in the physical book there are some prints of paintings that have been done based on confessions. So pretty good story, a lot of angst, a lot of these 2 main characters making really stupid decisions, and I understood why they were doing it, but I don't think that me understanding your reasons makes it okay for you to do that. So I had a little problem with that, and it was probably more realistic than not in the way that, people behave like that. But, I hated that. But I will say that Colleen Hoover always has promised she will always give us a happy ending. And this was no exception. She did that here too. I loved it, and I gave it 4 stars. And lastly, I read a kind of a realistic contemporary book called If We Survive. This is by Andrew Klavan. It was narrated on audio by Jeremy Johnson, and I didn't really care for Jeremy Johnson because he paused too much between sentences. I hate that, because it's like, it doesn't sound like they're talking. It sounds like they're reading or, making statements, and I don't like that. So what I did was speed him up to twice the normal speed. And it's kind of funny because they sound like cartoon characters when you do that at first, but then you kind of get the cadence, you get the rhythm of the way that they're speaking, and it sounds normal. So that was really good. It totally redeemed the book for me. Andrew Klavan writes Christian fiction for the most part, and this kind of had a slant that way, but it wasn't overtly that way, in that it didn't talk about, all the things that evangelical Christians will talk about. It's about a mission trip, and it's told from the perspective of Will, who is a guy who actually gets involved with this not through his church, but through his community, like through a school in cooperation with his church. And he and 4 friends go down to a fictional country called Costa Verde, which you kind of get the impression that it's in kind of Central America. And they go down to build a wall for a school. So they're there, and on the last day when they're getting ready to leave, they're waiting for their pilot to come in and pick them up. And a revolution breaks out, and they're caught in the middle of it. And so it is essentially the story of how they survived that. It's really well done. Tons of action. Really suspenseful. A lot of, people who Will describes as one way. And of course we're seeing all these other characters through his perspective. And then we watch him change, but then we also watch them change as he observes them. And it's just so good. It's really good because not only is it interesting in terms of the characters, but the action that's happening is really, really riveting. So, really, really riveting. You like that? So anyway, I loved it. I think that when I talk about the God slant, it's much more philosophical than anything else. It's not characters talking to one another about God, but it's more like an atmosphere of, I wonder about this. It's that kind of a thing. It's a great story. It's really well told, and I'm glad I have found Andrew Klavan as an author, because I think that I'm ready to pick up some other of the books that he has written when I'm in the mood for that. There's no romance here. There's only, intense action and suspense and, sitting on the edge of your seat. So I gave that one 4 stars. So that's all the contemporary and contemporary romance that I read in the month of March. If you've read any of these books and have any opinions on them, of course, I want to know what you thought. So let's talk about that in comments. And that's it for now for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my taco. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone.